audio amplifier. Here we have a sine wave of about 500 hertz at 100 millivolts. We have the scope, the oscilloscope, reading out at stage 1. Here is my input signal, the yellow wire going into my potentiometer, then filtering out any unwanted DC signals through this capacitor into the green input to pin 3 of the amplifier, and I am reading my signal at the orange. This is the scope, and we are reading at about 100 millivolts. Now I will dial the potentiometer to reduce the voltage. If I can get it, turning it clockwise, and as you can see, the voltage is starting to drop. I am now reading 80 millivolts. Still turning it down at 70 millivolts, and I will show turning the potentiometer counterclockwise, and you can see the voltage at the scope is back at 100 millivolts. Now I'm going to switch. I also have this pinout, so you can hear the audible noise that is feeding these both signals. So when I pull this, you can't hear it anymore. Now I'll connect the second scope, the second half. This is for this voltage buffer, and I'll connect the one we were just testing, and you can hear the audible ring. Okay, so since I'm feeding both signals right now we are reading the other half, the other voltage buffer, and we're reading at 100 millivolts. I will turn I'll turn it clockwise, counterclockwise I mean, and you can see the voltage just starts to drop. We're reading 80 millivolts, 85, 80, 70, and I will go back clockwise so the voltage goes back to the camera wasn't. There we go. Going clockwise, and we are back at 100 millivolts. I'll stop it. Okay, and I will hook both back, and at this point, if I disconnect one, since this is a summer, we can, by leaving one input signal, I can measure the gain for one, since it's adding this one plus 0, since it's not connected. And this green lead is my output for the summer. So let me disconnect this. Same scope. One second. And now I have my scope connected to my output for this second. Remember, we have reset both voltage buffers back to a gain of 1. And we will be testing this right voltage gain. So turn this back on. And it is still at the original 100 millivolts. Exposure. Turn down the lights. We're still at 100 millivolts, and we are reading just about 200. So we have a gain of 2. So if I start dialing this potentiometer counterclockwise, you can see we are increasing our gain counterclockwise in the voltage buffer, and you can see the graph enlarging right there. Now it'll get to the point. Now we're at a gain of, it'll focus, about 500 millivolts, which is a gain of 5 over 1. We're still gain at 6, 7. So I'll dial it back clockwise, and we can see the gain start to drop again. And you can see the graph. Very hard to do this. 2 hands. Here it goes. And see if we can set it back to a gain of 2. Right there. We have a gain of 2. Now I will stop the generator and stop my power supply, and we will switch channels. So I'll connect this voltage gain. I'll disconnect this, so now we are adding this side plus 0, and the scope stays the same. And since, well, let's see what the turn on supply and turn on the wave carrier. And we are at about 313 millivolts, as you can see right here. So we have an effective gain of 3. So if I dial this potentiometer, you can see I'm decreasing the voltage, the gain. So now we're at a gain of 2. Let's see, you can the exposure on the phone is not enough. So now we're back at a voltage gain of 3. Loose connection there. Loose connection. Oh, that's not connected. We keep. So you can see the gain is climbing. Now we're at about a gain of 5, and I'll turn it back down, turning it clockwise, counterclockwise, my bad. And we're back at the original gain of about 3. So now I will turn this off, and then I'll add both signals. We have just left this potentiometer at okay, I had an issue. I had put this pin in the pin over, which does not first go through that capacitor and then into the potentiometer. So I fixed it, and I also wired the input back this way, feeding the same signal to both sides. And where we had left off, this was at a gain of 3, and this was at a gain of 2, this side of it. So effectively, since it is a weighted summer, we should at our output have a gain of a total of 5. And there it is. Let me pull up the wave generator. We are still at 100 millivolts, 50 hertz, and our scope is reading live at 500 millivolts, which is a gain of 5. Okay. Now I'm going to. Okay, so stage 2 work, 1 and 2 work independently and together, as we can see. And I'm going to test stage 3. And we can test that on its own. Give me 1 second, I'll be right back. Back here again. We have the generator, function generator, at 100 millivolts and 500 hertz, same as previous testing. And here's our input signal feeding through. You can hear it, and this is the same channel 1 oscilloscope reading right at the speaker input. And we can see, back to the scope, we are reading just around 1 volt. So 100 millivolts, we have an effective gain of 10. So I'm going to try to do this. Turn the potentiometer counterclockwise, and you can see the gain and the volume, the sound of the speaker start to fade as the gain drops. And while I turn it clockwise again, you can see that the gain is rising and the volume of the speaker is also rising. And there it is. Audible. And there is the. Here we have all 3 stages put together. The yellow and the green input into the voltage buffer, and the outputs for those are those yellow orange wires that feed into stage 2, the summer, that join signals at the purple lead into stage 2, the summer, out this green wire into the input for stage 3, the power amplifier. And here we will be demonstrating the summation of both signals. I have a piano file and a guitar file. Here we play the first. There you go. And you can see it's about 6 seconds worth of I changed it to about 2-3 seconds of play. Let me get out of okay, there we go. And here I will play the second song, and you can hear both songs playing while I pause the first one. And you can see this is the guitar. I'll play the first one. Pause it. As you can see, the second song has very consistent signal output. When I pause the second one and play the first one, and then you can hear both. That is a audio mixer with 5 different control knobs for volume, voltage gain, and power gain. Here is just the first sample playing. I will pause it. Play the first one. Here it comes. And play the second along with it. And then here comes the start of the two. I will pause the first one and you can see the change. See the change after the first one was turned off.